Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. My name is Katana Malinowski, and I am the host of Transformational Art with Katana, making the unmanageable manageable. Welcome. And today I have with me Amy Lanci. She is founder and owner of Untold Story Enterprises and the Milk Crate Mastermind and communication consultant. She helps coaches and consultants to find the right words to describe what they do. Welcome today, Amy.
Thank you so much, Katana. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it is a wonderful time to be together, and I'm just so grateful to have you here with me today.
Oh, me too.
And I'm going to go ahead and remind our listeners today that the Transformational Art with Katana podcast is all about all things transformational. So that's people who've transformed, people who help people transform, and all modalities to transformation. So, with that, one of the wonderful things that we do is we start with getting to know Amy better as a person. So, who are you, Amy, as a person?
See, as a person, I am really all about stories. I'm all about listening. I'm quirky. I'm silly. I like to find joy in things. And when I mean find joy in things, I mean I find something to learn in every moment. And then by learning what that moment holds, I find joy in it. Even if it's like a negative moment, like there's something to learn here. And it's one thing about me is that I know the saying, you know, I want to be the best version of myself. I know that saying is all over the place. I actually won't ever say that because in my own philosophy with life, I know that we are all constantly unfolding to remember who we are. And when we remember who we are, that's when we are the best version of ourselves. So, in a way, I am saying the exact same thing as, be the best version of yourself. But to me, when you really are you, that is the best version of yourself. So I would rather say, I'm here to help you remember who you are.
Oh, that's powerful. I like that because you do bring up a good point. If we're looking to be the best version of ourselves, that in and of itself could be seen as a limiting belief
Yes.
that we're
Hmm.
not good enough.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, because it's like, oh, whatever state I'm in, I'm not my best version. So I am always going to have to prove to myself that, I need to improve. But then if you remember who you are, then it takes away that whole, better or worse aspect of it. It takes away that whole scale. Instead it's just like, am I me? Am I not me? Am I acting within myself? Am I not acting within myself? Period.
Yes. And I like that because I can see the duality though
Mhm,
in, wanting to always show up as the best version of ourselves,
mhm.
as well as recognizing that we are whole and complete as we are. So we are technically always a good version of ourselves. When we see that in ourselves, it kind of goes hand in hand with, happiness and love starts from within.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Recognizing that there's a duality. Yes, we want to always show up as our best version. So it's
Hmm.
not that it's missing, it's just that it's the choices in our
Yes.
day-to-day experiences that bring out the best of
Yes.
ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Which also helps us to remind us, like, what is our identity, what makes us tick, who we are, and what makes us unique. So
Oh, And uniqueness is, I should be think back up. I think should be celebrated
Yeah. Oh yeah.
by all of us. And learning to celebrate ourselves can actually be a difficult process
Yeah.
when we haven't learned to like ourselves first, to love ourselves first, and to
Hmm.
find happiness within
Yes.
ourselves first. When we're seeking validation from the outside world and happiness from the outside world and love through the outside world and others. And this is something that I've just really learned and experienced myself by becoming
Hmm.
a #1 international best-selling author,
Yeah.
and taking that in and
Hmm.
experiencing what all of that is,
Yeah. Hmm.
and realizing that, oh wow, all these years, these things that I had accomplished, I had not celebrated.
Right.
And all
Right.
of the time that I missed out, but I can still go back and celebrate them. It's never too
Hmm.
late. And I really believe in that because I find myself, sharing that thought process with a lot of people,
Hmm.
particularly people that are later in life,
Yeah.
past 30 or even 30 now.
Hmm.
I hear it a lot. Oh, I can't do that now. It's too late. Oh, it's never too late.
No.
I
Mm-mm.
went back to school in my late 20s
Hmm.
and started my college process in my late 20s
Mm.
and didn't finish until my late 40s.
Hmm.
It's never too late. And then we see the videos of the, older lady at 90 getting her PhD, and you're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's still going, you know.
Yes. Yes. It's never too late. And I think that you bring up a really great point that there's always the opportunity to give ourselves credit in ways that we never did before, and to celebrate that and to take it all in, because that is a lot, right? It's a lot to take yourself in, because some our conditioning, right? Our conditioning when we grew up, it was about, fit in with everyone else, do as I say, follow the rules. And there is merit to having to do those things to some extent, but then at the same time, you know, it's to the extreme such that it's a detriment to ourselves. I find that when I was younger, I was very insecure, and so because I was insecure, I was fitting in, doing my best to fit in with everyone else. But then, as I got older, it was like, what makes me me? I want to be special. Oh, I'm probably not special. Like, I spent so much time fitting in, I couldn't see myself as special in any way. And I think that's how it is for a lot of people. And then you spend the rest of your adult life being like, who am I? What makes me unique? Like, who is Amy? Who is Katana? Like, who am I?
Oh, yes. And it makes me want to jump in to what I know is coming up, because it is about the story that we tell ourselves. And we're going to be visiting that more
Yeah.
as we unfold, our conversation more. And that leads me into my next question, which is, what is it that makes you happy?
Oh, what is it that makes me happy? Let's see. My family. So, my husband Michael. We met through eHarmony. Sorry, they're not sponsored, but we met through eHarmony many years ago, and we just hit it off right away. And I was actually just thinking yesterday how on our first date we talked about plate tectonics, and it's like, well, who talks about plate tectonics on their first date? And so he's been so supportive through this whole business ownership journey, and so I'm really really grateful to have him. He's like my stable person at home. And then my daughter Autumn, she's 7 years old, and she is the light of our lives. She is just, I don't know what it is with kids these days. They're so enlightened and they don't even realize it. And I'm like, I don't think that's how I was as a kid, but gosh, like, just like, she's teaching me all kinds of things. Like, she's so creative, and she just sees the world in such a simplified, but like, just enlightening way. I can't even describe it. And she's so funny too. So they make me happy. And then also going to the beach to the wind in my hair and the smell of the ocean and the water, like the sound of the water, like that makes me really happy. And then what also makes me really happy is teaching people, because when I do my workshops, whether that's in group or or in one-on-one or virtual or in person, there's just something about it where I feel like I'm in my element. And I think it's because I focus mostly on engagement, be like, okay, we just need everyone's attention to like go from start to finish. We need to concentrate on not losing anyone. And so when I concentrate on that, I'm more able to have fun and just be me and turn people upside down in a good way. And yeah, so that's what makes me happy, is when I'm teaching, when I'm with my family, and when I'm at the beach. And also just watching random movies like the Marvel movies and such. Again, also not a sponsor. So I just want to say that. And I love my Oracle cards, and I love talking to new people. Like Katana, G and I met a few weeks ago after being part of this other group. So it's just, I think just being able to enjoy people and the surroundings, my surroundings in general, make me happy.
That's so fantastic. And no, we have no sponsors. And, it's just funny though how those
Okay.
things do come up, because, I too share a lot of the things that make you happy. I love as well. And having grown up in the San Francisco Bay Area, I spent the majority of my adulthood, although it's now starting to balance out, moving around the country. But in the San Francisco Bay Area, the beach is where I reset.
Right.
Right now,
Yes.
I don't have access. So that's a
Mm,
difficult challenge.
yeah, I can see that.
The beach is definitely a reset point. I love it, but I love nature. So as long as I can get into trees and near water and just be with nature in general, although I have the funniest stories to tell you about what happens when I'm engaging with nature, but that's for another day. And um the movies. So
Right.
it for me, it's also a proactive behavior. So if I know that I'm maybe not in the best headspace,
Yeah.
I will binge watch fun movies, as I call
Yes. Mm-hmm.
it, to bring
Mm-hmm.
my mood back up in, just to reset, take a moment and remind myself to be playful, which reminded me of what you were saying
Mm.
about, children today being more enlightened. And I
Yes.
often think about that because I've heard that more than once. And I
Mm.
was just fortunate enough to read an article that was talking about the reason why children appear to be happier or are happier,
Mhm.
because they're able to be in the moment more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's that difference between, childhood and adulthood, where when we're adult,
Yes. Yes.
we start to set expectations,
Mm-hmm.
not only of what we're engaging with, but on ourselves. And
Yes.
expectations, as I've learned over the last year and a half, really are a setup for disappointment. So if we engage in things without the expected outcome, like children do,
Yes.
we will
Yes.
actually have
Exactly.
better engagement in our work, our
Mm-hmm.
relationships, the world around us, because we're engaging in the moment.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you bring up a really great point. And I had to learn this as a parent that, when COVID hit, all of a sudden, like everyone was at home all the time and trying to do work with everyone at home, including my daughter, who was 5 back then. She was even younger than now. And I used to think that it was about getting her used to letting mommy work. Like I used to think that was the thing to focus on. And I realized, yes, that's still some part of it. But then I realized that, if she was acting up, if she was, constantly asking me for things and I was getting irritated, that it actually was the time for me to step back from working and be with her rather than like getting more and more mad, like, why are you interrupting me? Why? And it's like, and I now I realize that because she's so present in the moment, that if she starts like asking me for things more frequently, it's a sign that I'm not present in the moment. And then I have to be like, all right, I'll go play outside with you right now for 10 minutes and then we'll come back in here. So yeah, she's like my little life coach, I guess. Like she's like, I'm in the present moment. Are you in the present moment, mommy? Okay, like I'm gonna like, and actually she's not thinking about any of this. Like she's thinking about is just the moment. But I don't. I hope she listens to this podcast 10, 20 years from now and be like, oh, I did that. Like, yes, you did do that. I don't think you realize that, but probably at like some soul energetic level, you were sensing like I need to step in my own kid way. So, but you're right. Kids are so present. They're so present, and it's so amazing just how much of a difference 5 minutes of presence makes.
Yes.
It does. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it brings up another level,
Yes.
which is when we're with our clients,
Yes. Absolutely.
coworkers, or potential clients, and being able to be present
Mm-hmm.
for them.
Yeah.
And it's about hearing and seeing and understanding at a deeper level than that superficial waiting for the next question or waiting for the next thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I think when I'm present with my clients, the reason why my business is called Untold Story is because, I pull people's stories out of them. It's not because I am a crazy psychology person. I don't know NLP. I I don't do any like specific tactics. I just know that when I am present with my clients, that comes out, like their stories come out. And when I mean those stories, I don't mean like just the ones they practice before getting to me, but the stories that they didn't bother telling anyone because they didn't think anyone would want to know. They didn't think anything of it. A lot of people say the good, bad, and the ugly. I used to call it the good, bad, and the boring. Like people like, oh no, nobody really wants to know that about me. So, anyways, when I'm sitting there with my clients, and I'm present, like those stories come out. Whereas, like when I'm not present, I'm not in my superpower. So therefore, like it's like pulling teeth out of people when I'm not in my present self. And then therefore, the client doesn't get as much out of the session as they would have. And then I'm like thinking, did I lose it? Like, did I lose my mojo? What's happening here? So, but yeah, when I'm present, being with my clients and helping them figure out the things that we're figuring out with their communication in their business, it's easier because then I'm more open and then they're more open, and then we're able to make more magic together, as opposed to my mind's over here and their mind's over there, and somehow we keep on like smacking against each other, and like that doesn't, it's not a good formula. So definitely Katana, when we are present with our clients, like that's when we can tap into our superpower, and then we can like make cool things happen.
Yes, because then we can help them
Yes,
tap into that same space.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it, of course, that's going to help them do the same for the people that they're interacting with and in their relationships. And I feel like the world improves when we can actually hear and understand people
Yes.
in that true present space, instead of always hearing for, okay, well, let me respond. Let me respond.
Yes. Yes, because if we're focusing on the response, then we're not really listening to people. And then whatever response we have, it just proves further that we didn't actually hear the other person, and the other person's looking at us and like, I'm trying to say these words, but somehow they're not getting across to you. And not being heard it doesn't just mean, I'm talking and nobody is there. It means I'm talking and there's somebody there and they're still not hearing me, or I'm still not hearing them. And that's even more hurtful in some ways because, it's like, logically, I should be heard. This person should be listening to me. All the shoulds come out. And
And we know we don't want to should all over
I
the
know we
place.
don't want to shit all over ourselves. No, and that doesn't feel good. So yeah, no, and so that's what it means to not be heard is like when someone is in the room with you and you're talking to them and for whatever reason they're not hearing you. And so yeah, no, that sucks. So but yeah, so I definitely think being present with them is, one of the best gifts we can ever give to anyone else.
Yes, in total agreement.
Hmm.
So, on the flip side of the coin, what is it that makes you sad or angry?
Oh, what makes me sad and angry? When I hear about some group of people who were not treated fairly, who were taken advantage of, when I hear about, I recognize this about myself lately. When I hear stories about children getting hurt or harmed or killed, like it brings out this inner not just sadness, but anger. And, sometimes I have to step away from it because then it starts to like become so warped in me, like something just dark. I'm like, the world is a horrible place. Why? So that's one thing that makes me sad and angry is like when I hear about children getting hurt in some way, shape, or form, because in my mind, I'm like, they were children. They are just learning about the world. It's our job to teach them about the world. If you start putting expectations on what they should and shouldn't know when they're just at the very beginning and we're hurting them, we're taking advantage of them, like that's not right at all. So that's one thing that makes me extremely angry and sad. Another thing that makes me sad is when I see, and I'm not going to go to political issues, but when I look at like the polarization in the US happening with the different parties, like it makes me really sad that we're in this place that it's so polarized. And but it also reminds me of my mission that people, like, I'm here to make sure people are heard. And in my own research and then looking at what's happening today with observations of just our country and the world, that every conflict, every war, every battle, every disagreement is all a result of someone or some people not being heard. And so it's like, well, if we can help people to be heard, then what a difference could that make? So every time I see, a new war or something someone said that made the world mad or angry, I'm just like, we just need to, we all just need to like somehow like hear each other. So I mean, and I know that obviously there are atrocities that happen in the world every day, but and there's only so much I can do from my standpoint, but I do think that if we are able to understand that the basic concept of helping people to be heard, even if it's like my neighbor next door, like helping them to be heard, or my daughter, that's a ripple effect, like you were talking about, Katana. Like if we help one person in some way, shape, or form to allow their voice to become tangible, for us to leave that space, it, it sets off this whole chain of um, compassion.
Yes, and I like that you brought that up because it does come full circle back to what we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about
Yes.
with regard to being present
Yes.
and helping people feel heard,
Mm-hmm.
feel seen, and feel understood. And without getting too political,
Mm-hmm.
it is about not feeling seen, heard, or
Yes.
understood.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, somewhere within that is the lack of understanding that everybody deserves to be seen, heard, and understood, not just one particular group of people.
Yes.
And that's where I will abstain from going any further, because then and that's for another conversation in another place and another time.
Basically, where you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I have a political background. Before COVID, I was running for state senator in
Oh,
Nevada.
wow.
So I could really go on with this for quite a while. I was an independent and truly believe that it's not about what's next to a person's name, it's about their character and their substance and what they
Yes.
bring.
Hmm.
And again, we'll leave it there and move into my next question, which is, when you were little,
Yes.
speaking of children, when you
Mhm.
were little, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me see. So I was a speech delayed child growing up, and then, just having those insecurities. I wanted to, I wanted to be something that would utilize my mind since I was a straight A student. That seemed to be like my thing, like being the straight A student and standing out. So I wanted to do something that was, so it showcased my mind. But then I think there was also that wanting to rebel too. Like there was my creative side that wanted to come out. So I wanted to be a screenwriter in elementary school. At some point I wanted to be a paleontologist, and another point I wanted to be a screenwriter, someone that wrote scripts for movies, and I thought that was something that could showcase my love for words back then, because I loved writing. And it was, I thought, what kind of movies could I make? And I never actually wrote any plays or movies. I did write a script, and I don't even remember what happened in the storyline, honestly. But I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be super fun, and where could that lead me? So that's what I wanted to be as a kid. So thank you for asking that question.
Yes, I love to hear the different things that we all experienced in different ways with that question. It's just something I remembered, always being asked throughout grade school
Mhm.
that, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah,
And sometimes that meant multiple different things
yeah.
at different times. And for
Mhm.
some people, they knew from the beginning,
It's true. Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty cool in and of itself. And sometimes people had ideas that could never come to fruition, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it
And
is.
things that you can't become, but then you wonder, okay, well, did that have something to do with maybe one of their past lives? Or for those of us who believe in
Yeah.
past lives, and it's really fascinating, and I love that question, because
Yeah.
it's often really neat
Hmm.
and intriguing to see where, oh, I never realized that those things that I thought about when I was young are showing up now.
You know what, Katana, when you asked me that question, and I went from talking about wanting to be a paleontologist and also wanting to be a screenwriter, you helped me to just realize just now that it was like a foretelling of my life too, because I would go on to become a sea turtle genetics lab technician for 14 years. And then now here I am with like, communication, and that was like also stemmed from copywriting. And so it's like, even back when I was in grade school, I had this whole like science part of me and the whole writing part of me. It's so, thank you so for helping me remember and realize that. See, this is what untold stories are about. So like they see, I wouldn't have even bothered telling anyone this except Katana asked me that. So thank you.
You're welcome. So yes, you like to engage the left and right brain, being analytical and creative, and I can
Yes.
understand that because I'm very much the same way. Always love math and numbers and science, and I'm a creative. So,
Yes.
you know, it, and sometimes that can be a confusing space.
It is because, you know, I don't know for you, Katana, but for me, I felt like growing up, I was encouraged to be one or the other. Like it felt like I had to choose, right? Like, okay, if you're gonna go to college, you have to pick what you're gonna do. And, a lot of the times the it was, well, you go full on science or you go full on creative, which are like liberal arts and whatever falls under that category, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh well, the science. Well, for me, it was the science is the one that's gonna get me the job, so I'm gonna go that way. And it did get me the job, but it was, and it did bring me joy for a while. But at the same time, it was like that whole creative side of me was just not tapped into because it was just wasn't the environment. And so yeah, it's you I think being analytical and creative, I think it allows us, you were just talking about past lives, right? Like in the, past, like after death sense. But I also, see that in our lives right now, when you are definitely left and right brained, you're going through multiple lives at once. It's like, I'm going to do this now, and then I'm going to do this now. And then I feel called to, I'm done with this other chapter. I feel called to go this direction now, right? So, because it is confusing because there's a lot to explore. And then when there's a lot to explore, it's easy to get lost, but then it's also easy to find that joy depending on where you're at. And then sometimes it's just frustrating. It's just like, I don't know why. Like, why? So, and I think that's why, in the old days, at least in my parents' day, that's why they advocated, like, just stay with the same job for 30 years. That way you don't need to worry about where else to go. It's like, well, okay, but I think we still would wonder, though, what else we could do if we were to stick with the same thing for 30 plus years. But that's just me. I can't speak for anyone else. Other people may disagree, and that's totally okay. But just saying for me, I have found that I was just like, well, nope, this is not me anymore.
Yes. Yes. And I want to address the, we're always guided to pick one or the other. It's either or.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing. And I agree with you that actually I feel like if we're more guided to go with what our intuition is,
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
we will develop our whole self more.
Yes.
There's the
Mm-hmm.
mind, body, and spirit. And I believe that what's happening for people that are in those spaces that are doing multiple things, because not everybody is good at those multiple things, but that doesn't mean that they don't have something that can be transformed,
Right.
that they will go from one thing to the next
Yeah.
in a linear fashion, and some of us are just overlapping our linears
Yes.
as
Yes.
you mentioned. And for example, when I first went to college, I was you know going for my CPA, and then I changed into an art major, so I have my AA degree in art, but I
Mm-hmm.
started out going for my CPA.
Mm.
And then I got my bachelor degree in art with a minor in journalism, advertising sequence. Then I got my master's degree in legal studies with an emphasis in constitutional law, and went to law school for a little bit. So it showed up in so many different ways. And the interesting thing is how the analytical side has transformed my art side.
Right, right, right. It's true. And I think when I look at my journey as like I went from science to health coach, which is that business field, to copywriter, to communication consultant now, it I think what I found, here's what I've noticed for myself and other people I have helped. It's like we will be so structured in the very beginning because that's what we're taught, and then when we free ourselves, we're flying like a loose balloon, like, woo, I'm off in the ether. I will not be tied down by any structure because structure is the enemy. And then then it's like, well, this doesn't help me being floating around here. That doesn't help because then I don't get anything done because I call it the curse of infinite possibilities. Like I'm suffering from the curse of infinite possibilities. And
Yeah.
then and then kind of find that there is that nice balance of creating that structure so that the way things are getting done, you know how it's all going to work out, but you can still like play within this structure. Like it's like this nice little container here, so that way like it's not like you are compartmentalizing things in order to box yourself in. It's like, well, no, you're just making multiple different containers. It's like Marie Kondo, like putting things in the right place and then making sure that the clutter stays at bay. So yeah, I definitely think that the left side of the brain, the logical side, I think I got the logical side of the brain, the analytical, it helps to ground us for that nice foundation and that nice structure. And then the creative part is like the part that expands and comes up with solutions that weren't on the table before. And then somehow when those magical solutions appear, like, oh, yeah, that's where we need to go. Yep, I got it.
Absolutely. And again, this is another area of this topic that we could completely go on for a long time. But since we're coming up on the end of our time together, I want to be mindful of that and go into the next question, which is, how did you get on the path that you were on today?
Oh, let's see. So when I was like, it was halfway through my career as a sea turtle genetics technician, and I was 24 years old. I had just met the man who is now my husband. I went to the doctor, and the doctor did some tests on me because there was some weird stuff going on with my blood work. And we found out after an ultrasound and a biopsy later, found out I had non-alcoholic fatty liver disorder at the age of 24. And that was a result of my emotional eating all throughout the years, stuffing down my feelings, stuffing down, anything that I believed about myself because I believed everyone else was right and I was wrong. So fast forward, I lost a lot of weight. My liver went back to normal. I got married and had a kid. Or well, actually, sorry, before we had the kid, I looked at everything I had gone through to get my liver back to normal, and that was that wasn't just exercise and nutrition. Yes, that was a huge thing, but it was about doing things like establishing boundaries and prioritizing myself. Like those things were like even bigger than the nutrition and the exercise, even though those were important components too. And so I went through all that and I looked at what I went through and my life as a scientist, and I was like, this is not matching. Like there's something off here. And then I went to health coaching school. I got my certification as a health coach. Never run a business before, but I was like, ooh, this is where my life is gonna go. And I had my daughter by that point. So I was a new mom, never been a business owner. Anyways, 2 years later, gone through different programs to learn what it was to run a business, what it was to get clients. If anything, I paid people so I can coach them. And so that's why I said it was a failed business, because if anything, it was more like a nonprofit that was sinking real bad, but it was still in my 9 to 5. So, I mean, financially, we were okay. But I remember, I had a business coach at the time who asked me on Zoom when I was in my car in my work parking lot. She said, Amy, when your friends and family ask you for help, what do they ask you for help in? And I said, writing, without even thinking about it. And I was on the verge of tears when she asked me that question. So it was just the gut response, like writing. And so she said, I'm going to challenge you to change your business over to copywriting from health coaching. And so I changed over my website and my business cards. And a week later, I got my first 2 paying clients ever. And it was like the first time I'd ever seen PayPal give me money as opposed to taking out money. And it was like, wow, that's what it was like. And so it was just almost like the universe said, go that way. And as I went toward that way to just mainly offer writing as, something that people could hire me for, I realized that I had a gift for pulling people's stories out, and it was a gift I always had. Growing up, strangers at the airport, strangers at the grocery store would just tell me their stories, and I thought that was a normal thing. And guess it's not necessarily a normal thing for everyone. But anyway, so being on this path, and then taking on more of a consultant role, you know, it really is life coming full circle. Because I was a speech delay child, didn't think I was ever going to help people with their words because I struggled with my words for so long. And then, having to be in this left brain, right brain mindset, but then trying to be like either one or the other. And I love that now with my business, I can be both. And by being both, I'm able to be present with my clients, as we were talking about earlier. And it helps me to ground, helps them to ground, and it allows us to play and see what words really come out, and the things that are really unique about them come out, and then we relay that to their audience, in lots of really interesting and cool ways. So that's how I got my path.
That's awesome. Yes, I love to hear the journey and
Mm-hmm.
those moments when we surrender to the nudges
Mm-hmm.
that tell us, no, yeah, you're on the right path, but you might want to consider taking that turn and going that way. So I'm
Yes.
finding a lot of this showing up myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I found my purpose. And then it's like, yes, and now
Yes.
now try
Yes.
going this way.
Yes.
You're going, wait a minute, that's three different directions. And it's like, yes, just keep going.
Yes.
It'll all unfold and you'll see how it's going to come out in the end. And that kind of gets back to what I was saying before. It was just detach yourself from the outcome
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
surrender and say yes, and things will flow from there.
Yes, yes. It reminds me. I took my daughter to the trampoline park the other day, and there's this parents lounge that's above the trampoline park. So you seeing all the kids down below, and I was thinking like how when you're on the floor, you're seeing all these different cool things every time you turn a corner, but you don't know what's happening. You just know that there's something cool around the corner. Whereas like when you're above, you're like, oh yeah, I see. There's that rock climbing wall over there, and I see this other obstacle course over there. Like, it's not as fun to experience because you're just seeing everything at once. But then when you're on the ground floor, like we all are in this lifetime, it's like, all right, well, I don't know what's going to come up next. All I know is that there's something around the corner, and hopefully hopefully I can handle it, whatever it is.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And so, since we are at the end of our time today, I'm going to have you share with the audience exactly what it is that you do
Uh-huh.
and how they can get in touch with you.
Awesome. So essentially, with my audience who happen to be coaches and consultants, they have a hard time answering the question of what do you do, because you know it's hard to answer that question succinctly, concisely, and in a way that actually conveys to the audience that you're speaking to, oh yeah, this is exactly what I do. I go in there to help them articulate an answer that they are happy with, that is clear to the other person, like what do they do. And so that looks like consulting one-on-one. That looks like my mastermind, the Milk Crate, which is basically my membership group program, where business owners can come and clarify their messaging. And it looks like it looks like people pulling their stories out, or I'm helping them pull their stories out and also look at their processes and just looking at behind the scenes, what's happening and everything that they do, and being able to just narrow it down such that a third grader can understand. So that's what I do. And what my websites are, untoldstory.enterprises.com, or my mastermind is milkcratemastermind.com. And then you can also email me at amy@amylanci.com.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
Thank
Well,
you.
I have one last question
Okay.
that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
And that is, what is one thing you would tell your 18-year-old self?
The one thing I would tell my 18-year-old self is it's going to be a wild ride. So buckle up, not buckle up, but like buckle into your car, and just hang on. Because even though it may seem like there's nothing to look forward to, or you're kind of floating around, just know that there's so much more ahead, and you just need to hang on.
I just pictured that meme or that sticker that says, just, sit down, get in, buckle up, and hang on,
Yes. Yes, exactly. Because I would have never predicted I'm here today versus like back when I was 18, which was almost 20 years ago. It's like I don't know I don't even know what I expected at the age of 18, but I just know that I wouldn't have predicted this at all.
Yes, that is, in many cases, or in most cases, as I have found, where we are now and where we imagined ourselves to be then are oftentimes so drastically different.
Yes, exactly. So no, I think that's just telling of how mysterious life is. How mysterious life is, and that what, we can't possibly predict the future. We can get glimpses, but we can't possibly predict the entire thing, and that's okay. That's part of the fun.
Absolutely. It's a wild ride. That's what I just imagined. Again, nobody's paying me for that, and hopefully I don't have to pay to say that. But Amy, it has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Katana, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And I wish you all a beautiful day.
Yay.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Transformational Art with Katana. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and share the link to this podcast with your family and friends. To connect with me personally, please send an email to transformationalartwithkatana@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.